Welcome everybody. Welcome to the conversation map session. We're going to be using a conversation map tool to talk about your COPD. We're going to learn a lot about COPD through the conversation that is both informative and meaningful. So let's talk a little bit more about COPD. So tell me, when were you diagnosed with COPD? Did they tell you?
I didn't even know I had it when they did diagnose it. I really didn't.
Sure.
It's gotten a little bit more difficult, especially tying your shoes.
Sure.
But other than that, I just, I don't.
It's such a hidden disease that all of a sudden one thing bothers you or two things bother you. And with me, I'm not on oxygen yet, maybe never. But that doesn't mean that it's still not there and stopping me from breathing. I mean, there's something else that's causing it. We all have different forms of COPD.
How about you, Barb? When were you diagnosed with COPD?
Officially about 2 years ago, but I can remember back maybe 10 years ago, I had a breathing test, a lung function test, and they said I had COPD, but they didn't do anything about it. And I just went on with my life, and then I had pneumonia.
What made you go to the doctor?
The fact that I couldn't get from my front door to the mailbox on the corner from my house without panting like a old war horse.
Did it happen suddenly or gradually?
It gradually got worse and worse, and finally I had a doctor's appointment, and then I decided to mention it to her. And that's when they did lung x-rays, and she told me I needed to go on oxygen.
Sure.
So they did an overnight study at home with a pulse ox and what have you. And my primary doctor took care of it for about a year, year and a half, and then I decided I wanted to travel. So I went and got a pulmonologist so that I could fly to Denver, to Dallas, to Tucson, to Key West.
How was it to travel with COPD?
The biggest problem is I'm a widow, so I'm doing it by myself. So I am pulling a portable oxygen concentrator. I have a duffel bag with 2 extra batteries and 2 chargers, one for AC, one for DC, plus 50 foot of tubing. Plus I got my luggage, plus I got my tote bag with all the paperwork. Plus when you're flying with oxygen, you have to make arrangements, which each of my trips I planned 3 months ahead, because you have to notify the airline, you have to line up with their system and what they require from your doctor, from other testing and everything else in order to give you an okay. Then you got to have all these papers with you at the airport. And I found out the hard way that if you have a handicap, you cannot check your luggage out on the sidewalk. You have to get it into the counter. Now, if you're handicapped, how do they expect you to do that?
Exactly. What would you say is the hardest thing for you with living with COPD?
Breathing.
What did you say, Laurel?
I said breathing.
Breathing.
Yeah.
Besides breathing, what's the hardest thing for you to live with COPD?
For me, the hardest part is because I still work and I still travel, and it's being able to get oxygen where I go. And I often end up, this last trip, I was gone 8 days, and on the 3rd day I was informed I would no longer receive any oxygen. So I had no source of oxygen to get home or to continue my vacation.
How come you were informed that you don't have?
They ran out at the local center.
What did you do?
I had to go, I spent 3 hours on the phone and finally got a place where I could purchase it. So it cost me $775 to buy oxygen so I could breathe to continue my vacation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were you able to later submit this to the insurance?
I just got back and I had, no, the insurance won't cover it. They would have covered the one that they ran out of, but the center where I get my oxygen here and there ran out.
Wow.
That's scary.
That is scary. That is
When
scary.
respiratory, that's all they deal with.
Yeah.
And they run out and they just, sorry,
Yeah.
we don't have it.
Yeah.
We had a friend who has since gone.
Yes.
But she wanted to be in the hospital with her husband, and she didn't have enough oxygen. So she figured, that's okay, I'm in the hospital.
Yeah.
They could hook me up. But they wouldn't do it unless she was in the hospital herself. So
Admitted.
she had to be admitted to the hospital to get the oxygen that she so desperately needed to breathe. I also found in 15 years, like, since I've known and everything, that it gets worse. It doesn't no matter what you do. I'm sorry, girls, but it just seems to be getting worse anyway, regardless. Because I went, after 2 years, I was in rehab.
Sure.
And I was doing very well, but it still was getting worse and worse and worse.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, very difficult.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is.
Very scary.
It's very scary.
When you're
It's, I
alive.
found out that I was COPD because I lied down to go to bed and I couldn't stay lying down. I was stopping to breathe. So I was standing up.
Yeah.
And my husband looked at me and he said, oh, enough of this, let's go. So we went to the emergency room and I was diagnosed as COPD. After they gave me 2 treatments for breathing and everything, and they sent me home.
Sure.
Period. That's what, they gave me 2 treatments and sent me home. And I still cannot lie down to sleep. I sleep in a chair.
Both of my parents and my sister died from it. So when I was diagnosed, I said, how can this be? You know, I quit smoking back in 1971. Well, I was raised with cigarettes in the house. But my dad would always just stay in the recliner till it got so bad that he had a hospital bed in the house. My mother pretty much the same way, and they died years and years apart. My dad was 68, my mother was almost 80. My sister, she stayed in the recliner most of the time, and she was 69 when she died. So it's scary for me because I know what they went through, but I'm healthier at my age now than they were ever at the age I am today. So I think they have changed their procedures.
How did your doctor explain COPD to you?
Chronic obstruction pulmonary disease.
Yeah.
Period. That was how it explained to me. I'm sitting there, not breathing, so I know that that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already knew we couldn't breathe.
I mean, now
we
I
didn't
have
know
the words
why.
for it, you know, what it means. And that's about it. And then after that, they start treating you for it, but all they're doing is giving you medicine or telling you to go to rehab or
Taking
different things like
tests.
that.
Tests.
And I don't know about you, but for me, I learned more in pulmonary rehab
Yeah.
than I learned anywhere.
Yeah.
They did videos and
I was in the hospital
explain
for
things.
When you talk to your grandchildren or kids, how do you explain COPD to them?
I explain it the same way I do little kids in grocery stores that stare at you,
I'd say the
and their
opposite.
mothers are trying to hush them up, and I say, no, that's all right. And I tell them, I have a problem with my lungs. This is giving me air so I can breathe. The kid says, oh, okay, and walks away.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell the parents, let them ask. I don't mind.
Ordinary life is the hardest part. Taking a shower. You know, I get totally exhausted. The humidity coming in makes it very difficult to breathe when you're, even though I have my oxygen on and I turn it up to a higher level, and then I have to sit and rest and dry and sit and rest and, you know, do things. It takes like 2 hours to get ready, whereas you used to be able to jump out of bed and shower and be out the door in a half hour, you know.
Getting dressed, cleaning house.
Cleaning house is like impossible.
How often do you go to pulmonary rehab?
Twice a week.
Twice a week.
For an hour each time.
It's twice a week because we've already graduated from their beginning classes, which is longer and more.
That was 10 weeks and 3
Intense.
times a week.
This is like maintenance.
Maintenance,
Yeah.
it's called, yeah.
So it's maintenance. That's why it's twice a week. Otherwise, it would be 3 times a week.
And it brought us together
yeah.
because we become a big support. I learn what she does to handle situations, or her, or even him. And it helps because then we know when it happens, we're not, crazy.
Yeah. You learning anything at those support groups?
A lot of people are worse off than I am.
I learned how to breathe, and they kept telling me going up steps, because steps are so hard. Any elevation really makes it more difficult. And I learned how to breathe the right way. I've been breathing the wrong way. I know that sounds weird, but
No, it doesn't.
you can.
Yeah.
And by doing it the right way, I can now go up and down steps.
Tell us a little bit more about that point that you realize that you need oxygen when you need to like wear this.
I had to do it through proving that my oxygen level had fallen that much that I needed it. Because when you can't breathe and you're gasping, often your level measures high, right, Pat?
Very
we were
high.
talking about that. And yet when you're breathing fine, it measures it down in the tubes. So you can't tell by how you're breathing.
It's a real nice disease.
Yeah.
How often do you use your emergency inhaler?
Sometimes once a week. Sometimes once a day. It just depends. I start coughing, it stops the coughing, or at least I think it does.
How do you know that there is a good reason to use your emergency inhaler? How does it? I mean, what's going on?
Mostly it's through coughing. That's it. That's the only time I use it. I run out of breath, running up and down. But
The wheezing too.
what?
When you're wheezing real loud.
Yeah, that's another thing. I start to wheeze, you can hear me for a block. But so I'll take a shot then.
How did your life change since you were diagnosed with COPD? Besides all of the symptoms and all of the things that you do.
Carrying an oxygen tank, I can't get on the back of my son's Harley anymore.
That's a big issue.
Yeah,
No,
it is.
It's a very
My
big
husband
issue.
and I used to travel on motorcycles.
Yeah, it's a very
And two
big
of my
issue.
sons have Harleys, and they keep saying, "Mom, when are you going to go for a ride?" I said, "Dragging this thing along?" My son says, "We can fit it in, so one of these days we're going to."
It's
Love the go,
Saturdays.
go love the go.
Oh, yeah.
That's perfect.
What the heck?
Yeah, it's Harley. You can
I'm
put
only
that in. Yeah.
76. What the hell?
How about you guys? How about you, Barb?
I don't join my family when they do their outside bonfire and everything because I'm not supposed to, for one. And they all smoke except me, and they know not to smoke in the house, which they're okay with. But sometimes if a door is open or a window is open, then I get pissed and I slam it so they know that I can smell it in the house. My two youngest kids lived with my mother and nursed her till the day she died, and they still smoke.
Hey, there's people with COPD with oxygen that still smoke.
So did my parents.
$10 a package stopped.
My dad,
What did you say?
I said, $10 a package. I would have stopped now if I hadn't.
my dad would take his oxygen
Last I
out,
heard,
and
it's
then those
110.
days you had the big green tank, and he'd turn it off,
Talking
and
about
he'd
the
roll a Bull
burns.
Durham, smoke it, turn it back on, get another glass of beer. This was a daily thing. Yeah, because my kids like to do a bonfire. And
Yeah.
I can't be
And you
helped.
can't do that.
Yeah.
We can look at this map, right in the middle. Pat, can you
What
read
is
it?
the most important reason for you to manage COPD?
What is it?
To live
To
longer.
live,
Yeah.
not to exist, to live. There's
To
a
live,
difference.
yes, a healthier lifestyle.
I don't want to just
Be.
crawl up in the corner of a chair and say, "Oh, woe is me, I'm going to live." I don't want to
Right.
exist.
So besides your support groups and then besides the pulmonary rehab, who is your biggest support system with managing COPD?
The pulmonary rehab, what do you call it?
Yeah, well, yeah,
therapist.
but that's like a support
Respiratory
group.
Respiratory therapist, thank you.
I had a question for you, though. What is this guilt? Whose guilt? Guilt that you have it? Or guilt? I mean, where does guilt come into this?
Let's talk about it. What does it say?
Just as
Managing
guilt.
COPD with family members.
And what does it say? Isolation?
Confusion, anxiety, isolation,
Oh, I
guilt.
started something.
Did you ever feel guilty?
I think
I did.
guilt is, I know Ann Seeloff felt guilty because she would get angry at people who asked her if she smoked because she smoked cigarettes. And, you know, I think she felt guilty because she smoked cigarettes.
It's
and
like
that's how she
you've
got
given
it.
yourself this disease by smoking.
Right, and yet not everyone that smokes gets it.
Right, and not everybody that has it was a smoker.
Exactly. Yeah.
What are the other feelings? Anxiety?
Yes.
Confusion?
I get anxious not knowing
Relief
if I'm
and
going to die like my
opportunity.
family died, with all that not being able to breathe and the coughing and the choking and the phlegm. I don't have those symptoms, but I don't know what I'm going to have in 10 years.
I worry about confusion because every time your oxygen level drops below 90, brain cells are being killed. I'm still working, and I'm a CPA and do taxes. And when I can't think straight, I'm like, oh my God,
Screw up somebody.
my brain's
I'm not functioning properly.
I know.
These numbers are not free.
And yet it's probably normal, but you get scared because once you have it.
That's how I know my blood sugar's going down. I'm not functioning properly.
So I'm handing out a myth or a fact card for you. So each of this information is different. As a group, we're going to decide if it's a myth or fact and put it either on a fact placement or myth. Who would like to start first?
It is common. It is common for a person with COPD to also have sleeping problems or conditions.
I don't
That's
believe
fact.
I
Yes,
think
it
that's a
is.
fact too, that it's common. Doesn't mean that everyone does.
Yeah,
What conditions?
Why
Sleep
do you think it,
apnea.
The CPAP
can't
does
sleep.
why do you
sleep
think it,
apnea.
Well, talking about COPD with my family will make me a burden on them, so I should just hide it the best I can.
Myth.
Myth.
Absolute myth.
My daughter didn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to acknowledge it. She refuses to believe it.
it's hard on her, isn't it?
Yeah, she's afraid she'll get stuck with me.
But
So-
then if she feels that way about the COPD, she would feel that way about any disease that
Right.
you get.
Just the fact of growing older, she doesn't like to see it or
I don't
acknowledge
like it
it.
either.
Yeah, none of us like
Better
it.
than the
Yeah.
alternative.
But
Like we
beats-
like it, right?
Well, you don't like it, but it beats the alternative.
That's what I just said, yeah.
Yeah.
How about it?
Yes, overall, with people with COPD, if you would be able to talk to your doctor, what would you ask your doctor to help you with?
I'd ask him to sit down and explain exactly what the problem is and what this course of action that he's telling me I have to do is going to accomplish and what the results are going to be.
You're gonna die.
I don't think
Well,
there's
I
a
know I'm gonna
guarantee on
die, but-
results.
I mean, that's what I was told.
I
Yeah.
keep hearing it's a progressive disease and,
Right.
there's no stopping it. And I don't like to hear that
Why not?
because then I feel like I might want to give up.
There's an end.
Yeah, but
And I
that's a fact.
don't want to give up.
But it's still a fact, Million. Don't you want to hear the facts?
It's a
But I can stave it off by doing what
By not
I'm
knowing
doing.
about.
yeah,
Doing what I'm doing.
right.
Staying active, taking the medication,
Exactly.
doing what I'm told
Right.
to do.
Exactly. But
And
if
the
they
only
don't
way
tell
I'm
you
going
the
to keep
facts,
doing that is to think if I have hope. And
Well,
if
you do
tell
have
me-
hope because you're staying on an even keel. You are not going down the slope yet.
I have gone down slope,
Oh,
like
okay.
I think
yeah,
you
but
said
if
that.
they don't tell you
From
that,
I started out on 2, I'm on 3. If I have to carry metal, I'm on 6. I mean,
Yeah, but
what
see,
I'm
I've been
saying
on
is
two
if,
for
if you're not
7 years.
told that it's a progressive disease, how do you know what you have to do
I
in
guess
order
you
to
have
keep
to know
it even?
that. But the doctor will say it's progressive.
And then
All
in
we
addition
can
to
do-
that, what else can he say or she say?
He should then go on beyond that and say, however, you'll slow the process by doing these things.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I got to Dr. that I'm going to now, that he even mentioned pulmonary rehab, because I was in a pulmonologist for, what, 5 years before that?
So thank you for being here today. I know we all have learned a lot, and we had a very good discussion, very meaningful discussion. We enjoyed each other, and I look forward to see you next time in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.